why this story? This particular short story by Arthur Conan Doyle begins most intriguingly. To Sherlock Holmes, she was always the woman, Irena Adler of dubious and questionable memory. That idea of a woman who manages to outwit the brilliant detective, the consummate detective, Sherlock Holmes, through her intellect, through her woman's wit, appealed to us, I guess, first because we are really interested in stories in which intelligent men and women find their way to passion or don't.
I was very interested in this story also because many operas end with the woman defeated somehow or dying or otherwise sort of subsumed in the life of the male hero, and I thought it would be wonderful to write an opera where the woman is really victorious. Another reason why it seemed very operatic is because the character Irena Adler herself is an opera singer in the story. And finally, because everybody in the show gets to put on a costume one way or another, which seemed very operatic. Sherlock Holmes dresses up in two different guises as part of the original story. Irena Adler herself in the original story has to put on a costume. And so we concocted a scenario with 4 different actors playing a multitude of different roles, and we just thought that would be a lot of fun. We first started working together because we were introduced by Jim Freeman. This was about 15 years ago. I was working on an opera with a fiction writer who had started me on that project, and that writer very generously turned the project back over to me, saying basically he was unable to write a libretto and he thought I needed to find a poet to write the libretto, that he really couldn't do it himself. So I mentioned this to my colleague Jim Freeman. At that very time, Jim was teaching an opera class and Nat Anderson was sitting in on the opera class, and that's how we met, through Jim.
When we first began to work together, one of the things that Tom said that I think has been a guiding principle for me is that especially when there are crowd scenes or several people singing together, the words are going to drop out. The audience is not going to be able to hear those particular words. So what the words are, in a sense, is a skeletal structure on which the emotions of the music can be hung. And so, of course, you want your words to be selected from the piece you're adapting pointedly, or you want to develop a metaphor in a way that you think is powerful, compelling. But it's much more important in a way for the librettist to be terse, so that the music can actually develop the emotional complexity, the complexity of personality that's there. So the music is, after all, what's significant here.
One of the really engaging aspects of this project has been the involvement of Swarthmore students along the way. When I was on sabbatical 2 years ago, I was devoting the sabbatical largely to working on this project, but I arranged to have a group of students perform a scene from the opera, and that actually helped me crystallize a lot of the musical material because I really wrote it for them, not just one of the singers, but also the instrumentalists who were in the orchestra. And I was hearing the voices of those students as I was working on it, and it gave me a kind of a personality to write for in a way that I found very engaging. Our department has been so fortunate to be able to host Orchestra 2001. It came about in the first place because Jim was on the faculty here and started it up, and from the outset he was very eager to involve students in the group. So it is routine that at least at one of the concerts a year, the most advanced Swarthmore student musicians get to play in Orchestra 2001, playing a professional concert alongside professional musicians in top venues in Philadelphia as well as here at Swarthmore. So it's just an extraordinary learning experience for them. So between the rehearsals, the open rehearsals, and the concerts that happen here, and the level of student and community participation with the group, it's really galvanized the musical community at Swarthmore and integrated Swarthmore in the larger musical community of Philadelphia in a way that is unparalleled, I think. There's no organization like this in any other college anywhere in the United States that does anything remotely comparable.